Welcome back to Weather Nation. Top story, well, that's going to be the severe weather. Big-time thunderstorms on the way for places like Joplin, Missouri, North Platte, Nebraska, as well as Des Moines, Iowa, and those areas of western Iowa, eastern Nebraska, down into eastern Kansas and western Missouri. Could really see some of the strongest weather for today as we're going to continue to track that severe risk building in throughout the afternoon. Now, Kit, we have seen severe weather out there this morning into areas of Oklahoma, but it's going to be today when we get to those peak heating hours this afternoon. Those storms are really going to ramp up.
That's right. And we've got a couple of reports to show you as well out of Oklahoma and Kansas this morning of some pretty high winds. So up to 68 miles per hour there in Hugh, Oklahoma, even parts of Kansas there, liberal Kansas, just over 60 miles per hour. Of course, 58 is the severe threshold.
Yeah, and that's when we look there at Chickasha, you can see it was at 50 miles per hour. 50 miles per hour is still pretty strong, but there might not be what we refer to as a severe thunderstorm warning for winds that strong. Have to get up to that 58 mile per hour greater criteria.
And of course, wind is one of the factors, but we have several factors as well around this part of Nebraska, into Missouri, Kansas, and Iowa there. We've got the chance for large hail, 2 inches or larger, and also a tornado threat in this region.
Yeah, and it's that tornado threat that we're seeing here, the chances of that happening or the likelihood that we see that. And we look there along the Missouri River, we've got St. Joseph up into Omaha, Lincoln as well included in that 5% risk of tornadoes today.
So let's time this out as we're going to start seeing some of those thunderstorms coming out of Wyoming into the sand hills of Nebraska as well. But then also we'll see some development out ahead of that system around the Omaha area. Notice we sort of have a line that's developing here that could then turn into a larger wind event. And notice, Patrick, we've got sort of that Boeing shape right there into Missouri.
Yeah, and then we continue to track this complex across Missouri, the Mississippi River Valley, and out into areas of the lower Great Lakes where it's likely going to produce some very heavy rain all the way through tomorrow morning.
And of course, flooding is always something you have to keep in mind with those thunderstorms that track over the same spot. But here we have that hail and wind potential, that 30% risk. So that's more talking about the coverage area rather than the intensity. Of course, whenever we have that significant wind threat or significant hail threat, in today's case, we're talking about, again, 2 inches in diameter or larger.
Yeah, so golf ball size hail, that's 1.75 inches, 2.75. That's when we're getting up to baseball size hail. That 2-inch mark, that is about the size of a lime. So imagine the size of a lime. That is the hailstone and larger that we could see coming down today.
That's right. And then as we head into the day Wednesday, we've got a couple of areas here. So across the high plains into Colorado, the panhandles as well. Then also we have another one from the lower Missouri Valley into the Ohio Valley. And that is also where we see the higher wind threat and the tornado threat as we head into tomorrow.
Yeah, the tornado threat will be there. It'll probably be more isolated across western Kentucky, southern Indiana, Evansville, Louisville into Kentucky, Lexington, as well as London included in that isolated tornado threat.
And of course, we always have to treat every warning with the same amount of attention because one tornado warning, even in a marginal threat, can still produce a large tornado. It really just depends on that coverage area once again.
Yeah, and all those ingredients, if they can come together right there to give us that severe risk. And then look at Wednesday, scattered showers across the northeast, maybe some of those strong thunderstorms down into Kentucky, West Virginia by Wednesday night into Thursday morning.
And of course, we do, like I said, have that flood threat as well. That's going to be in places around northern Kansas with those heavy repeat showers. We saw that line, Patrick, and that's possibly going to lead to the potential for some flash flooding.
And of course, we'll have more updates on the severe weather threat coming up throughout the day here on Weather Nation.
And welcome back into Weather Nation. We're taking a look in Kansas City and Council Bluffs, two places where we might be looking at the chance for severe weather later on this afternoon. And we're going to get you those details right now. So thanks for joining us. Well, we do have that risk for severe weather across the Central Plains. So Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri, you're right there in the bulk of this, but also along the high plains, we could see some isolated thunderstorms and maybe some dry thunderstorms down into Texas. So taking a zoom into that highest risk that we have today across Nebraska and into northeast Kansas and northwest Missouri, we do have that 5% risk for tornadic activity today. So this is going to be maybe more intense, maybe more dense density for those thunderstorms to produce that tornadic activity. So always check the radar keep it on here with Weather Nation. We'll have all those details because really any thunderstorm that starts to rotate could put down a tornado with some of these storms. Now, the wind and hail is also focused in this very same region. When we get supercell thunderstorms that do start rotating, it actually helps suspend that hail a little bit more. And then those downdrafts that bring those high winds can also be a bit more intense. So initially we'll start off with the potential for significant hail. Then once it moves into Missouri, it will be less significant hail, but still we could see upwards of an inch into Missouri. But when we talk about significant, that's 2 inches in diameter or larger. So that's about the size of a lime or an egg, depends on the size of what you get at the store. But anything larger than a golf ball can cause pretty significant damage. And we could even see up to baseball-sized hail, which really cause quite extensive damage in whenever we have those kinds of storms. Eventually they will clear out. We won't have any more storms around by early morning on Wednesday. Overall storm impacts here, we've got the wind and the hail for the Lincoln and Omaha region here. The tornado threat is also there, but once we see some of those thunderstorms congeal into more of a cluster or a line, that's when it transitions more to a significant wind threat in those areas. Again, by Wednesday morning, it should all be cleared out. And if there is any damage, we should be able to get out and start cleaning that up. But this line could produce a lot of rainfall as well. So we do have that slight risk for excessive rainfall across mostly northern Missouri, but also into the corner of Nebraska, far southern Iowa, and northeastern Kansas there. So looking for the Kansas City metro out to Topeka, up to St. Joe. You're mostly looking at the wind threat. The hail threat is also there, but you're not within that significant hail threat. The tornado threat, again, also present, less significant there. And then the flooding, once that line eventually comes together, that will produce a lot. But notice we do have one isolated thunderstorm here early into the nighttime hours here on Tuesday. So that could be one of those storms we have to keep an eye on for tornadic activity. Once it congeals into a line up north and comes to the Kansas City metro, that's when we're looking at that high wind threat transitioning to the heavy rain threat, because it really does persist for quite a while. We could see a lot of areas with persistent rainfall for several hours, and so we could see some places getting 2, 3, maybe up to 5 inches of rain. It really depends on where those storms track. If they track over the same path and they intersect, that's where we get that flash flooding risk really at its highest. So Maryville, just to your south, might be seeing some places with very heavy rain. Topeka, Kansas, your 3-day forecast. We're looking at temperatures in the low 80s for the first couple of days. Then we're going to see a surge of warmth from the south, 80s into the upper 80s for you. Lincoln, Nebraska will also see a very similar story. We've got that building ridge to our south that's going to bring in a lot of heat, a lot of warm temperatures into the area, getting close to 90 degrees in parts of Kansas and Nebraska. But of course, it is hurricane preparedness week, and we do want to bring you the details on that as we look out at Cancun, Mexico, where we might see the potential for development of thunderstorms into maybe a tropical system, Patrick.
Yeah.
Well, welcome back into Weather Nation. Now we're looking at a video out of Hansville, Washington. A gorgeous, gorgeous rainbow, even a double rainbow in there. A little bit of rain and the sun behind you. Always look for a little bit of a rainbow anytime you see that. Thanks for joining us here for the Northwestern Regional Forecast. We'll get to meteorologist Patrick Crawford for the Southwest here in just a moment. But we've got more moisture on the way for the Pacific Northwest. We've got some snow for some of the higher elevations in the Cascades and the Rockies as well, and warmer temperatures off towards the Plains regions. Now, across the area, we've had high pressure that's built in, but that's going to eventually give way to low pressure and a cold front that brings in more moisture off of the Pacific. That eventually turns into a low pressure system that will bring severe weather to the northern plains. We discussed that earlier this hour, but we could still see some lingering moisture bringing in a few more snow showers. Looking at today's high temperatures, Seattle, you're looking at only 61 degrees, 72 though in Kennewick, a little bit warmer there. Boise, Idaho at 74 degrees, so it will be nice and warm for you. Across Oregon, looking at some of your high temperatures today, Lakeview at 72 degrees, Medford at 76, Bend, Oregon, a little bit on the cooler side at 68, 67 for Salem and Portland. That high pressure, once again, that's going to eventually move out. And we start to see some of the higher elevations in the northern Cascades that will really see the heaviest accumulation of snow with this. Once that cold front pushes through, it'll still be bringing in some Pacific moisture on the back side of that low pressure. So some of the higher elevations, the moisture goes up the slope and starts to wring out just a little bit of extra moisture. So really only into the mountains will we see the remaining moisture add to the precipitation totals. How much snow are we talking? Well, 1 to 3 inches for more of the lower elevations in the Cascades. Some of the higher elevations off to the northern Cascades, we could see anywhere from 6 inches to a foot of snow. Into the northern Rockies, only around 2 to 4 inches at best around that area. The next few days, temperatures are going to be into the 70s and even dropping down into the 60s for Boise. So warm to start. That cold front comes through, brings in the moisture as well as colder air. Missoula, Montana, we get that moisture coming in Thursday and Friday, highs in the 50s. We stay in the 50s in Seattle, but then by Friday we might start to see those temperatures warming up just a little bit. For Medford, Oregon, we'll see just a slight drop in our temperatures there Thursday, but then we warm up very quickly, even into the 80s for next week. Looking a little farther inland now, highs around this area. Dickinson, North Dakota at 74 degrees. Same thing for Miles City. 70 in Great Falls. Missoula at 67. So notice it is warmer a little farther to the east here. Worland, we're looking at 74 degrees for you. Riverton at 75 degrees. And Rock Springs at 74. Now, these areas in Wyoming off towards the southeast, we might see the chance for some pop-up thunderstorms today. Maybe they might be severe as well. So those will pass into the Sandhills and Panhandle of Nebraska. But still some lingering showers around this area. Eventually that cold front from the Pacific will make its way in. That'll bring some snow across parts of the Bighorns and the northwest part of the state. A little bit more on that precipitation there as well. Jackson, Wyoming, around the Tetons, we'll see Thursday and Friday are going to be more of the gloomy days. So if you're going hiking, maybe wait till Saturday and Sunday when temperatures are going to be back into the 50s.